Well, good afternoon, and we did it. Today is day 12 of the 12 days of articles in review. Woohoo! I'm so proud of myself. And of course, I'm proud of you guys for enduring this. And again, I hope that you found it clinically relevant and informative. So, in celebration of today being the last day, I chose an article that I think really speaks to all of the aspects of care that I'm really passionate about. And this particular article is entitled Optimal Healing Environments. It was published in 2015 in Global Advances in Health and Medicine Journal. This is an open access article, so when you go to the written annotation, you can actually download the full paper. The authors are Bonnie Sakallaris, Larissa MacAllister, Megan Voss, Catherine Smith, and Wayne Jonas. These guys are all based in the United States, and several of them have affiliations with the Sakallaris Institute. And the Sakallaris Institute is actually the organization that coined the term optimal healing environment back in 2004. The term was designed to describe a healthcare system that is that stimulates and supports the inherent healing capacity of the patients, the families, the professionals within the space, and the organization at large. They've done a fair bit of research and, consensus, gaining consensus around these different constructs and concepts. And actually about 10 years ago, more than 50 of the nation's leading healers and innovators came together and really started talking about and envisioning what an idealized healing environment would look like. And then a group of hospitals then kind of tested out these constructs and concepts in the clinical setting. And what they discovered is, and I'll get into more detail around these constructs, but what they discovered is that one of the key components requisite for success in achieving an optimal healing environment is the engagement of the folks at the executive level. That authentic and transformational leadership was key to creating a culture of healing. And I think everybody really kind of gets that, and sometimes we can be frustrated when we don't have that level of authenticity and that level, that caliber of leadership in our organizations, either locally or at the executive level. But just like any kind of quality-driven or excellence-driven type of initiative, you need somebody at the helm who's really passionate and committed to the goals that have been identified. So, what are these goals or constructs, if you will, in the optimal healing environment? These guys have basically identified 4 domains, and within these domains, 8 concepts attached to them. These domains or these environments are the internal environment, the interpersonal environment, the behavioral environment, and then the external environment. And so beginning with the internal environment, they talk about the concepts of healing intention and personal wholeness. And, healing intention, every clinician, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, you went into this work to heal people, to make a positive impact, to help people get better, to minimize their suffering and ideally even cure them. But what these guys talk about is, that's awesome, but it sometimes, isn't all about curing, right? There are some situations that or circumstances and diseases that we can't cure, but can we bring a component of healing to that situation? And how they describe healing, the Sakallaris Institute defines it as a holistic, transformative process of repair and recovery in mind, body, and spirit, resulting in a positive change. And you may think to yourself, well, gee whiz, Mary, what's the level of awareness or consciousness of the people that we're taking care of in the newborn intensive care unit? And my response to you is that we're gaining more and more insight about the affective capabilities and their capacity for consciousness. And in fact, there was a really cool paper, gosh, I forget the year, but if you email me, I'll dig it up and I'll share the citation with you. But it talks about consciousness, and generally the neural substrates requisite for consciousness are present around 24 weeks gestation. Now, the magnitude or the complexity of the consciousness is not as would be seen in a full-term person or even in an adult, obviously, but that there is an awareness of self and other in these individuals that we're serving. And while we are in relation with them, we are communicating their value to them, the value that they bring to the outside world. Healthy newborn babies just bring delight and joy and stuff to the people around them, even non-family members. Everyone coos and goos at full-term people. But the people, particularly the really sick individuals, they might be hooked up to tubes and all this other kind of stuff, or they might be very premature and not look like what we expect a baby to look like if you're not, familiar with this environment. And so that kind of spontaneous biological feedback may not manifest itself in the environment that we're working with. And so we need to be conscious of that and make an effort to convey our healing intention to the patients that we serve, and of course the families too, who are undergoing extreme distress and crisis given the circumstances of their brand new infant. These concepts and constructs have resonated not only with quality improvement professionals and leadership professionals, but also with nursing. There was several symposia that really reviewed these, and nursing has felt that these really align with our core principles and our core philosophy. And of course, my favorite nurse philosopher, Jean Watson, talks about this idea of healing intention and advocates for this integration of a more intentional and caring consciousness in the work that we do. Now, that being said, it can be a challenge in a high-tech environment. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I know most of you guys are adrenaline junkies. So how do we bring this all in together? Well, one of the suggestions is, how we do self-care. Our healing intention towards ourselves and honoring ourselves, bringing our A game to work all the time. It takes work to do that. It's not just a punch in, punch out kind of a profession that we engage in. So those components of that internal environment are really important and play out either consciously or unconsciously. The interpersonal environment that the authors talk about is, again, in relationship with other. They're talking about healing relationships and healing organizations. Healing relationships that we have with our patients and their families, and those relationships that we have with our colleagues and our peers. But also the organization. Does the organization have a mission that's driven by a commitment to healing and health creation, not just curing? Not that curing is a bad thing, but again, we're very complex, dynamic, multifaceted beings. And as such, we can't just focus on the body. We need to focus on the mind, body, and spirit to really honor who we are and the shared humanity, of our peers and our patients and their families. And so how do we cultivate those relationships? And I did this really cool project. It was a 3-year project, my quantum caring program with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta down in Atlanta, Georgia. And one of the projects that they worked on was this healing human environment. And they did a mindfulness initiative where they collaborated with the university down there and had some trainings for the nurses and talked about the impact of this mindfulness training on reducing the sense of incivility in the workplace. And, I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. There's incivility in our work environments, and it's not just healthcare, it's other places too. Not that I'm saying that makes it okay, but we need to call it out, we need to say what it is, and we need to figure out ways of dealing with it, because when we work in those kinds of environments, it undermines and corrupts our ability to create an interpersonal environment that is based in healing relationships. They also then talk about the behavioral environment, and the behavioral environment really is talking about healthy lifestyles and integrative care. And now, you might be saying, a healthy lifestyle for a critically ill infant? Well, yeah, the healthy lifestyle, are we optimizing their nutrition? Are we optimizing their motor development and their swallowing capabilities, and optimizing the development of their microbiome, through our skin practices and that sort of thing. So those are healthy lifestyles. Are we minimizing their stress? Stress reduction is a big piece of this. Are we promoting relaxation? Or are we just, we're on the clock and we're doing our patients up every 3 hours and it's hit or miss, if they don't know what's going to happen, and because they don't know what's going to happen, they're programmed to always be anticipating some kind of a disruption. And that doesn't allow you to relax. That overactivates that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and there's a lot of bad stuff that goes along with that. So how do we cultivate as much of a relaxing milieu as possible in an intensive care environment? What are your sound levels like? Are you cycling your lighting? Are you trying to create some kind of a healing space for these individuals that begins the foundation of a healthy lifestyle? Because as we're providing this for our patients, we're really teaching the parents as well. And then, of course, how are we maintaining a healthy lifestyle? I was a night nurse for a long time, and obviously you need to have nurses on night shift, but it really set me up for some really suboptimal lifestyle activity. And so, and I wasn't aware that was even a thing, that was even important. And so a lot of this information that's coming out, I think, not only informs, the folks that are, at the front line right now, active clinicians, but also how can we bring this into educating the next generation of healthcare professionals, because it's really, really important. And then the integrative care component, that the care that we're providing is person-focused and family-centered and incorporates a multidisciplinary approach. It's not just the docs, it's not just the nurses, but it's the therapists as well. And it's not just OT or PT, but it's bringing in child life, it's bringing in chaplaincy, it's bringing in the psychologist. It's really creating an integrative model of care. That whole thing about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it certainly takes a village to heal an infant family dyad that is in crisis. And being in a NICU is a crisis situation. So that's the behavioral environment, and then the external environment. And, those are the healing spaces. And then they also talk about this concept of ecological sustainability. And when they talk about the healing spaces, it isn't just about, having nice colors on the wall and, music piped in or something like that. It's really about creating a physical space that is conducive to cultivating healing relationships, cultivating healing intention. And, based on evidence, we know that healing spaces are even more impactful when we can integrate nature into the space. And so how do we do that? How do we do that in a NICU environment with all the challenges around, infection control and whatever else might be out there? And the ecological sustainability component is, when I was a younger NICU nurse, it was just about pulling stuff off the shelf. If things fell on the floor, you just threw it away. And, but we had this very disposable mindset. But we really need to be mindful about, reducing the footprint that we're leaving. And in a high-tech world, there's a pretty big footprint there. And so how can we be more responsible about meeting the needs of the patients and the families without corrupting the health of the planet? Because again, all of these actions are interconnected, right? How we take care of and interface with each other is reflected on how we think about our place in the world and our responsibility to the world and to others. And so it was a really great paper, and I know it's not NICU specific, but I think, sometimes it's important to pop your head up out of the hole, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but in the NICU, you can really dig in and, you get your head down and you're doing that stuff that gives you that adrenaline rush, and it's really cool and exciting, and then you go home. But I think it's really important, and what I've learned in my work is that I know in the NICU it's a subspecialty, and our patients are really different and special and all that other kind of stuff, but there are a lot of commonalities that we share across all of healthcare, and it's important for us to be aware of that, or we can just go down this little rabbit hole and miss all this really cool stuff that we can bring into our world and into the services that we're providing for the patients that we take care of. So that's it for today's annotation. I want to thank you again for checking them out. I look forward to your feedback, and as always, take care and care well. Bye.